3, 2, 1. And welcome back to the Steve Malzberg Show. And joining us right now to talk about what we discussed in the first segment, where we documented what is in the Senate deal, is our friend, Lieutenant Colonel Alan West, former congressman, of course. Hello, sir. How are you?
I'm doing great, Steve. Thanks for having me.
Well, it's my pleasure on a day where it appears that as the Republican caucus meets as we speak, it appears that John Boehner will bring to the floor the Senate bill and open it up for a vote, whether or not he's got a majority of Republicans on board or not, and this thing will pass. How do you feel about that?
Well, without a doubt, it will not have a majority of Republicans. And as I said, several times before, the most important things relating to the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare, if it is a law, it has to apply to everyone across the board. It cannot be cherry-picked to the point where it's just an edict. So if you have an employer mandate that has been delayed for a year, then the individual mandate needs to be delayed for a year. You cannot continue to have all of these waivers and exemptions out there to include the members of Congress and, our quote-unquote elected officials. And that's a slap in the face of the American people. I am glad to see they have the income verification as part of the subsidy request and application. That's an important thing. But we need to repeal the medical device tax because we're in a fragile recovery, almost non-existent recovery, and the medical device tax is just going to hurt our economy even more. But I am really concerned about the lack of an economic vision. I know that they're saying they're going to go to another committee. We know how the last super committee ended up. But we cannot continue to raise this debt ceiling without anyone talking about what the economic vision is to get back toward growth. I mean, we're limping along between 1.5 to 2% GDP growth, and you have a federal government that is spending about 25% of our GDP, and that's supposed to grow to about 30 to 32% between now and the next 8 years. So we're looking at a catastrophic situation. So I think, once again, the American people have been let down.
Well, I couldn't agree with you more. And to me, it's just been not only a disaster for the Republicans because they're caving and they got nothing, but also here's all they had to say, and you tell me if you agree with this strategy. If I were the speaker, I would have been out there every day saying the president broke the law when he amended the health care law that was passed, as they claim, by the Congress, affirmed by the Supreme Court. They want to say it was fought out in 2 elections. Okay, then why did the president keep amending it? Why did he pick and choose, what he would enforce, when he would enforce it? What he did was against the law, and he gave everybody, all his friends, a pass for a year. We're just trying to give the everyday person a pass, but they never express it that way. They never explain it that way.
Well, Steve, it sounds like you should be the spokesperson for the House Republican Conference, definitely maybe even be the Speaker of the House, because you're absolutely right. This was an unconstitutional action coming from the president, coming from the executive branch, because in a constitutional republic, once something is passed in the House and Senate, and albeit we need to understand that the Affordable Care Act was passed without a single Republican vote, and there was some procedural
in the Senate. They
Yep. Absolutely. So, I mean, we can talk about constitutionality till the cows come home. But that's the argument to make, and they failed to make it. And now they're rewarding the Democrats by letting them believe, once again, if I call you an arsonist, if I call you an extortionist, if I call you, what's the other? A
kidnapper, terrorist, jihadist, you name it. Yep.
You are going to just, cower and be worn down instead of attacking me on principle. And so this is a horrible lesson. Once again, it's a Pavlovian lesson. And the American people need a Republican Party that's going to be a loyal and strong opposition. We're
talking to Colonel Alan West here on the Steve Malzberg Show. Let me ask you about Speaker Boehner and his position. Yesterday, we had Congressman Yuleskamp, certainly, a Tea Partier through and through, who said that, there's no way the speakership will be in jeopardy, even if Boehner does what we believe he's going to do today. We predicted that yesterday. He said there's too much control, too many people are dependent upon the leadership for their campaign financing and in support when their reelection comes up. No one's going to mess with Boehner. And then we have today a story in Politico where you have people like even Congressman Raul Labrador, Republican from Idaho, who's been very outspoken, Jim Jordan from Ohio, who opposed Boehner for Speaker in January. They're all saying, no, Boehner's doing the right thing. You know, he's fought the good fight. They don't think that, you know, there's going to be any challenge to his speakership. What about you?
Well, the last thing you want to do is to give even more fuel to the camp of the Democrats and have a circular firing squad. We don't need that. The most important thing that the Republicans in the House and also the Senate, they need to come together, and they need to finally be able to unify as a voice and stop with a lot of the infighting so that, as you just articulated, to go out and have strong spokesmen and women that can really talk about the unconstitutional actions of this administration, talk about how they're trying to stand up for hardworking American families as opposed to the hypocritical elitists of the liberal progressive Democrat Party who are saying one thing but doing a complete other thing. They don't care about the middle-income family. The middle-income family in America has seen their wages be depressed. They have seen gasoline prices rise. They have seen food commodity prices rise. And now they're about to see their insurance premiums rise, and they're not going to get a break like the cronies and the friends of President Obama.
Yep. Well, let me give you another one. Here's another. You see, here's how I think they could turn, I don't know, lemons into lemonade, if you will. I don't like that expression, but it popped into my head. And that is, once they concede, once they, you know, this vote is taken, and once the president, I mean, Jay Carney came to the White House press briefing today smiling with his smirk, and someone said, "Oh, it looks like you're smiling." He said, "I am." Here's what they have to say, I believe also. Look, we were dealing with a president who was willing to risk default, who was willing to risk chaos, who was willing to risk pain, unprecedented pain. Why? Because he wouldn't delay the medical device tax, because he wouldn't have his family sign on to Obamacare. And we saw that we had to save the country from that pain, which this president was willing to inflict just based on those two little things that we wanted. But they're not going to do that either.
Well, I wish they would. And again, you are really lobbying to be the spokesperson for the House Republican conference. But you're correct. I mean, you have to once again articulate that you're the one that is standing up for the American people,
right?
Not the president. He's going to dance in the end zone. He's going to spike the ball. But the most important thing also is to say that the Democrats own this now. If this passes in the House, which, you know, with the Democrat vote, and I'm sure there'll be some real squishy Republicans.
Oh, there has to be, yeah. Otherwise, it won't pass, yeah.
Absolutely, and so they'll end up owning this, and no more excuses. You know, now we can talk about the failures that we can see. Now we can talk about the adverse effects upon, you know, small business owners and people who are being put on part-time and taken off of full-time equivalent employment. So, you know, now you have to have a message to come out very strongly, and really also a message that talks about how we want to see economic growth and not economic dependency, which is what this president is pushing.
Now, you called him a spoiled brat, I think, the last time we were on, and we made some news about that. Having heard what I just said, and of course you knew this full well, but you know, knowing that this president, unlike any other president in the past, would not negotiate, would not give an inch. In fact, because of this president, told Harry Reid and even threatened to veto it. All along during this course of this shutdown, we've had kids with cancer who can't get treatments, veterans who couldn't get benefits, parks and monuments that have been closed. D.C. is ready to go bankrupt because they can't use their own money. All of that could have been remedied because the House passed those bills.
Don't forget the death gratuity benefits also.
Yes, but that was remedied, and that was politics. But these bills have been laying in the Senate and could have helped these people, and this president said no all along. Even as we speak, they're not being helped. So how would you describe the president today as this winds down?
Well, when I look at the fact that Obamacare is not the law of the land, it's an edict, I see this as King Obama, not President Obama, who is making rules that apply to certain people that, you know, kowtow or appeal to his vision of destruction of this great constitutional republic. So I think that we have gone beyond an imperial presidency. We almost have a monarchy, that has been established here in the United States of America. This is not a constitutional republic anymore, and I think people need to understand that. And with the passage of this CR and this debt limit extension, we have definitely taken a large leap toward losing the great republic that men such as George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, James Madison, George Mason, John Adams gave us as an inheritance. And shame on us as an American people for falling for this and letting this, usurper and this petty charlatan
One
take
more.
this great country away from us.
One more. Ben Carson said that this Obamacare is the worst thing since slavery, and he's caught a lot of grief for that. What's your take on that analogy?
Well, you got to talk to Ben Carson about it. He can use whatever analogy that he wants, but I can tell you this, that I believe that it is a huge threat to the future of this constitutional republic. Anytime that we have an executive branch that can violate the separation of powers and the system of checks and balances that we have and overreach and overstep their bounds and limits that the Constitution has placed upon that branch, then we have a serious problem here in the United States of America.
Yep. All right. Colonel, thank you, sir. Always great to talk to you.
Thanks so much, Steve. Have a great one.
You too. Lieutenant Colonel Alan West, former congressman from the great state of Florida, here on the Steve Malzberg Show. 877 Newsmax, you want to weigh in? Love to talk to you. 877 Newsmax right here on the Steve Malzberg Show, Newsmax TV and radio.